Boom, hello, and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This is the #1 podcast in the executive protection game, and this is the largest free real-world library of executive protection content in existence. So sit back, relax, dig in, and enjoy the show. While we honor the slogan that executive protection is more than just a job, ladies and gentlemen, it really is a lifestyle. Boom. Boom. What's up, team? So here we are, season 4. Let's take things to the next level. It's been a blast, man, going back through, picking out moments that really stand out. Best of the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This episode is going to be more of that, man. We're going to go back into the podcast, and we're going to pull out those nuggets, the gold, as we continue with this series, man. And I want to let you guys know that if you don't know already, the Man of Peace podcast is where all of this is heading. In 2025, we're going to be launching the Man of Peace podcast, which is going to be really the continuation of much of the work, but it's going to take everything and put it in one podcast. So as we not really wind down, but we start to move into a new chapter for Executive Protection Lifestyle, I want you guys to enjoy these. If you're not watching this podcast on YouTube, you should probably check it out on our YouTube channel. Link will be accompanying this video, but you just look up Byron Rodgers on YouTube, you'll find me. And this is a tribute to those men and women that joined us for the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast Season 4. Sit back, relax, and enjoy all the gold there in here. Remember, protection is more than just a job, y'all. It really is a lifestyle. Let's go.
Like, you're a humble guy. I know you're a humble guy. That'll come out in conversation. Let them know who you are. You know, let it all out, bro.
I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Man. You got whatever you need. You're the boss.
Appreciate it. So, background, man. How'd you get into combatives? What's your experience level, you know?
So, growing up with a single mom, dad left when I was like 10, 11. We had no money. She's out the door 4 a.m. on a train ride to New York City, getting home at 7 at night. Friends of mine were doing karate, right? This is 18, I'll be 40, so it's 30 years ago. And it was like, hey, mom, I want to join. We had no transportation, no money, blah, blah, blah. A friend of mine's older brother, very wealthy family, but they still taught them the value of earning their own money, even though they were very wealthy. His older brother is a brown belt or black belt in Taekwondo. And he said, hey, his name was Tony. Tony will give you a lesson 2 hours for $10. I was like, man, I can figure out $10. You know, I can do chores. I'll figure it out. Because 30 years ago, $10 got you a lot of 50-cent pitchers of beer and 10-cent wings. And, you know, so $10.
Yeah, $10 is like $100 back then, man.
Right.
You know? So
I did one lesson with Tony in his basement doing karate. And he said, I'm going out of town for a week. I'll call you when I get back. And Tony is 5'9", 135, 140. He calls me when he gets back. He's like, hey, you ready for your second lesson? Let's do it. I go over and he says, let's do something different today. Now I'm 6'2", 210. He's 5'9", 135. He said, why don't we wrestle? And I'm like looking at him, looking at my chops. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Yeah, do you want to die in your own home? Like, come on, bro. So anyway, he proceeds to treat me like a redheaded stepchild. I get choked, arm. I'm like, what are you doing? He said he read an article in Playboy magazine when you read the magazines. And the article was the Gracie Challenge. It was the $100,000 challenge by the Gracie brothers. And they said, if anybody can come out and beat us, we'll give you $100,000. And if we beat you, we don't have to you don't have to pay us anything. Ultimate marketing dream, right? So,
100%.
or for lessons call. So he called, he flew out, he trained with Hicks and Gracie for 1 week in his garage. After 1 week, he tuned me up like crazy. He said, we're not doing karate or taekwondo. This is all we're doing. So we were in a basement. Wow. We put couch cushions on the floor. We're hip throwing each other, double legging, arm on the carpet, you name it. And it was a finished basement, but it wasn't fun. And just fell in love. Then I went to a seminar in Connecticut, the same seminar first day Matt Sarah went to. So we were in the same seminar. And then I was up at college. He called me up. What are you doing for spring break? Fraternity was going to do what you do in Cancun. He said, do you want to go train with Hoist? I said, yeah. Now this is a year before the UFC ever came out. So he wasn't Hoist Gracie yet. He was just some Brazilian dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm in New York. And so my mom's like, you're joining a cult. What are you doing? You know,
these gangsters, these Brazilian
kind of what
gangsters.
I did, though, really.
Yeah, right.
Really what I did. So I flew out for spring break. And this was March. And the first UFC was, I think, November. So then I went back to college. Fast forward, UFC comes on. I'm telling all my fraternity brothers, hey, that's the guy now 30 years ago, you don't know anyone in California on TV. Come on, you're in upstate New York. Who do you know from LA? Yes. And he wins UFC. Week later at my house, nobody still believed me. And he calls. And one of my fraternity brothers picks up the phone. Everyone's sipping and, doing what you do. And he's just looking like this, like starry-eyed, like John. We're like, who is it? It's Hoist Gracie. I'm like, give me the phone. Now, remember, I knew Hoist a year before he was Hoist Gracie, right? So to me, he's just Hoist. He's just Hoist, right? So we get on the phone. He's like, hey, now my last name is Burke. So he calls me Berkey. Okay. He didn't know the E was silent, and I wasn't going to tell him. So I became Berkey. You'll probably end up picking out strike.
That's how you get these call signs, man. Yeah.
So he just said, hey, Jorge and Grace said you're coming back for a summer internship, like a Karate Kid thing. And he said, I got a new house. You want to live with me? I was like, are you serious? He said, yeah. So I lived with him. And then I went back for the summer, trained every day, helped them with their law enforcement seminars, helped them with the rape prevention, helped them with seminars on the road, celebrities, etc. Got ingratiated big time. Went back the following summer, graduated college a half a year early, moved straight to LA. And then I was like homeless, sleeping in a parking lot with a gun on my hip. I didn't even know how to use a gun. You know what I mean? I'm just finding the safest parking lot I could find. And I was homeless. I had cardboard cutouts in my trunk with my clothes folded. And I would shower at the Gracie Academy and I would eat at the smoothie bar because the Gracie died. And I would just train. And then they finally offered me a job being like the janitor, errand boy.
Anything, the everything, the runner. The shoe shiner, whatever.
Yes. Yes. So, but back then, you're laughing, but that's the truth. I pick up laundry. I pick up Elio Gracie at the airport, which paid off. I told myself Portuguese. So if we're going to Brazil, Byron, let me know. I got to protect you in Brazil now.
Okay. Hey.
With the language. Just with the language. You got the physical. So, but anyway, I just got so much time with them and became part of the team, inner circle. Next thing you know, I was his right-hand man on his fight teams for pride fighting. I did Gracie challenge matches. But throughout time, special forces groups, different military units, DA, ATF, FBI, the teams, CAG, Coronado, they'd all come to the Gracie Academy because it was the place, right? And so I got to start to work with operators and military and law enforcement, LAPD gang unit through the Gracie Academy. And it just sort of evolved. Then I was leaving and CAG offered me a contract at Fort Bragg. So I moved straight to Fort Bragg, was training them, members of 82nd, Ranger Battalion, and then 9/11 happened. And all my contracts were revoked because they all got deployed, except CAG kept their contracts since they're mission specific. So they came, I kept training them. And then a retired guy who was on the Mogadishu operation, Norm Hooten, very good friend of mine for 30 years. He ran the Mogadishu operation. He called me and said, you want a job working with the government? So I started training counterterrorist training, advanced counterterrorist. Oh,
Norm Hooten. Was this the guy, the character, the Hoot character? Was this?
Yes, sir. That's one of my close friends. So the whole team.
Dude.
Yeah. So those guys are all my students from Mogadishu.
Man.
The ones that survived, like Rick Kachoch, all these guys are all my boys. And to this day, we're all in touch. Rick, one of them has been trying to help me out a lot with your industry as far as training different teams for different people. And we're all still super tight. Yeah, great dudes. And so then Norm called me up and said, Berkey, everyone called me Berkey. Berkey, you want a job? So I got hired on to be an advanced team leader for counterterrorist training, 30,000 feet for the Air Marshal Program. So they'd go through FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training, then they'd come to SAIC, and I was a team leader for hand-to-hand. So the CAG operators were team leaders for firearms and tactics, and I was a team leader, and I got another guy on team lead for hand-to-hand.
Wow.
And so that's kind of spawning. And then 9/11, then the contract went on that I just didn't want to live in Fayetteville anymore. North Fort Bragg was like, So I moved to Orlando, Florida, opened my gym, and here we are.
Boom, man. That is outstanding.
The longest part was set up. Yeah. And since then I've kept in touch training law enforcement. I've stayed on top of it, but I also have a local commercial gym right here in Orlando as well.
I'm going to be fine, And it wasn't until actually my civilian friends made me come to a shooting competition that I started to really, really see the value in training and realize, hey, it's all the things I do when I'm not working that are going to make me like worth hiring.
Right. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on?
Well, when I got done running around overseas with a rifle, I hadn't done a whole lot of handgun work either.
Yeah.
And so, but I decided, okay, well, I'm going to need something if I'm going to be running with a handgun in the States. I'm going to go ahead and get some training. I did some training, but what I didn't realize was, a lot of the fundamentals we were using overseas, I translated back to a handgun here. So it was a real easy transition for me.
Mm-hmm.
But and the second thing was the protective environment is a lot different than the military environment. It's usually very offensive.
Different mission.
Yeah. And so you do have to kind of reel yourself in a little bit, and you're a little bit more selective. You're talking about the use of force continuum now and liability. And there's all these other things that you have to consider before you let that round leave that barrel.
Right.
And so I think it was important initially to get some decent training. It kind of changed my mindset, because even doing protective details overseas, it was still kind of a very offensive mindset.
Oh, yeah.
You're ready for it to kick off at any time.
Yeah.
And everybody's a bad guy type of thing, you know.
Right.
And it was a lot different. So it's crucial not only to go to a good fundamental marksmanship school, but to ramp things up and put yourself into a protective environment.
Right.
Whereas you're not always going to shoot.
Yeah.
And now let's see how you can do. And as you know, in our training that we put on, you know, these guys sometimes are surprised. They don't know that they're going to be in a shooting drill.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're in a shooting drill. And we've seen skill levels, you know, drastically change with that surprise. And so I think going through training like that, or somebody else's, any good training program is going to give you those skills. And kind of, even if you are a former military guy, we kind of clean up what you maybe what you were doing with the rifle, now translating and cleaning up to pistol marksmanship or combat marksmanship for protectors. So hugely important.
100%, because there's a different mission, and there are different skills, and you know, like you were saying, we see guys skill sets deplete when they're faced with the high level the situations we put them in. You know, scenario based training. And now, you know, more of your bandwidth is being sucked up while you're trying to navigate different scenarios. But the reality is that is what's going to happen, except it'll be much more high stakes in real life.
Right.
You know, and so it's like really the time to do it. I think another huge valuable thing is guys were walking away from, and we're talking, I mean, everything's valuable, but like just the kind of like the balls of what a man kind of thinks of when he thinks of, you know, these more protector jobs, like pistol alone, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Guys walk away with kind of understanding, man, I should be practicing this at home. I should get a cert pistol, and like this is how you actually get good at these things. And there's zero shame in it.
Hey, I was over in Iraq for a couple of years, and on vacations, I would come back and we were running with AKs and Brownings. Yeah. And I would come back and take an AK course. Yeah. And then I would take a Browning course. Yeah. And then I would go take another one.
Heck yeah.
I would just keep doing it, you know. I wasn't, you know, I would never consider myself good enough. I needed to be the best I could be before I went back. And this is all on my own dime. No company was paying for me. Right. Sometimes I'd go back and tell the team, you know, what I did. I went to two driving schools. I went to an AK shooting school, and I went to a Browning school. Yeah. And that was your whole vacation. Yeah. It took me the exact, you know, 30 days, you know, 30 days was our off time.
That's awesome.
I said, I took my whole thing. They're like, you paid for that yourself? Yeah, I'm investing in myself. I have a client to protect. And it came to several clients to protect. I was running the whole team. And to me, it was a no-brainer. You know, I knew I wasn't the greatest, and I needed to
be more reason
the best I could be. You know, we get these students out here at our school, right? You've seen the group that comes out. Great guys, great girls. Yep, they come with different skill levels.
Yep, 100%.
Here and here.
Yeah,
I don't need you to be all here. I just need you to go from here to here, and then move up. Yeah, that's it. If I can get you to move up and be better than you were before you got to us, we did our job right. Yeah. Are you safer now? Are you making better decisions? Are you hitting whereas before maybe day one you weren't hitting? Right. If you're doing that, we're doing something right. And you've seen that that's what we're doing out there.
100%. And if I can get you some habits that you can work on your own time, you know, I was so proud when I saw those guys take the, you know, like, hey, I need to do some dry firing, and I need to, you know, and my favorite sentence, I thought I knew how to do this.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly, man. But I realized that I don't know how to do any of this stuff, man. And that's where you want to be. The reason, you know, and it's such an upside down world. It's like, if you see me on social media, you might think the reason I'm training and slinging lead is because like cool guy stuff or lights, or like, look how cool this is. Like, yeah, it turned into something that's quasi cool. But the reason is because I'm not that good so I go train. You know what I mean? Their whole entire reason. Like if you shoot with my squad at a competitive shooting thing, I'm like kind of upper middle class. Like I'm like, you know what I mean? Like my friends made fun of me when I started videotaping myself. They're like, you're gonna videotape you and put you on the internet. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's cool. I want to show the journey of getting better. But I'm training every day. I'm hitting the gym every day because I'm not that awesome. And I need every edge I can get. And I'm just like, I got to try to be better. You know, people are paying me to protect their families. It's huge.
That's the way I look at it. And that's,
Damn.
you know, I see comments sometimes, oh, you're never going to have to use a gun, this, that, you know. You know what? Hopefully you don't.
Hopefully, hope to high heaven we don't.
What I like to tell the students out there is we're on the Dumb and Dumber program.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance, you know, there's a 1 in a million chance.
Yep.
There's still a chance.
Yeah.
And if I'm paid to protect them, isn't that my primary duty?
My primary
soft skills is what they're going to see all day long.
Every
and you
single
need
day.
those, and you need those too. Honestly,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you have to have that, or you're not going to survive.
Right.
If you're just ready to spearhand, you know, everybody in the
Everybody that
throat,
walks around.
then,
You're a liability.
yeah,
You're
you're not going to
dangerous.
be great, but shouldn't you be good at the protection part of your protection job also?
Right.
And that goes with the firearms. That goes with client evacuations.
Yep.
We actually, our team did a limo down drill in Brazil. We weren't getting
Like
attacked.
legit had to get.
Well, yeah,
done.
but we weren't getting attacked.
Yeah.
The limo went down.
It just did because you were just in Brazil and that's what they had. Yeah.
How impressed was the client when he realized that the whole team and all their luggage was in the other vehicle in about 45 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
And they were pretty impressed that that happened. But, you know, our guys, they had been through our schools and everything. And so they're rolling up and they're like, the limo's down. Okay. So they're telling their driver, pull up to this side of it.
Yep.
And they got out like a limo down. Who wants to stay on the side of the road? Everybody knows in hot areas, if you're on the side of the road for more than 5 minutes, the boogeyman comes out.
But yeah, 100%.
So you got to get moving, right?
Yeah,
and so it was funny because the client actually noticed how proficient they were. So they weren't under attack, but they got some skills they could use. So what we try to do is, we're going to give you a bad day at the office out in training. You can dumb that down to wherever you need to be.
100%.
It might just be something happened to the car.
Yeah.
And you want to get your client and their children over to this other car quickly.
Right.
You have a plan now. You know what this guy does. You know what this guy does.
Exactly.
And you have some sort of a plan. So you're tweaking what you maybe got in training, but you're using what you learned.
Right.
And now look what's going on in some of the big cities in America. You just never know when you have to go pick up the kids at school for your client and the riots are breaking out. Yeah. And now you're getting caught up in one of those damn, no-win situations.
Exactly. And you've got to use your training. And that's happening to people. I mean, you guys know how unstable our environment is, which is why what we're doing is becoming more and more in demand. But I mean, it's just, you never know what's going to happen. You never know when it's going to happen. And so I think, this kind of phrase I keep hearing in the industry, which is like, oh, you're never going to have to do that. Oh, you're, Whitey, that training's excessive. Or it's like, for me, it's like, I don't have a crystal ball, man, and I've got to be as advertised. And it's like an integrity thing for me, and I have to be able to be like, yes. And I can hear, and I know some of the guys that are like, well, you should never have to do that. If you have to do any of those things, it's because you've already failed at 100 million things. Maybe.
At the same time, I've heard that. There's a whole bunch of guys in the areas that I work in. I usually only work in high threat areas that would disagree with you.
Yep. That's exactly
when you listen to their stories.
Mm-hmm. They did everything right. It's just their day.
Absolutely. When you're in an area where these things happen a lot, you're in a problem. If anybody thinks that you can't get attacked if you do your advanced right and all these other things, you're completely wrong. And that's a ridiculous statement. Sorry. Started coming out years and years ago. And it's one of those ones that stuck. And it's completely false. I've heard a lot of these false statements that have stuck around for years. And these are old school individuals that can't get that out of their head. But we can mitigate a lot by our planning and contingencies. That's what we do. We don't want trouble. We want to avoid. The art of avoidance is what we practice on a daily basis. But you can't always avoid everything.
No.
The environment we're in right now. I know what was going through both of our minds, and we're going down that one way in, one way out.
Yeah, man. The whole time, just like
right. And then hearing from the guys with us what was happening on this road, a couple of weeks ago. And now going over in our head, okay, this is happening here. Okay, now this is what we can do to maybe avoid. But
or even
it's not an
react.
absolute,
Yeah, exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to think. You have to understand it's not an absolute. Okay. So we can't avoid it. What's our next step?
Yeah.
Now what's our next SOP? We can't avoid this block in.
Yeah. We're here now.
Yeah,
We're trapped on this one MSR for the next.
Yeah.
That is the thought. That's the beginning, man. That's the seed like sprouting right there.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts, man. I love
Yeah.
that.
So I started looking at your stuff and then looked at, my background and, we'll talk about, I guess, how much, because it's really interesting. With my law enforcement background, I was heavy on the soft skills. Not that the hard skills were lacking, but like everybody, I became a cop, got into this. I went to SWAT school because that's what you want to do. You want to get your wings. So I was like, SWAT school.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want to do that. But a guy that I was working with was a translator and he was a negotiator for the Guard, and he spent a lot of time in Iraq. And he was like just this backwoods country guy that you'd never expect. And he turned me on to proxemics and human behavior and micro expressions and interview and interrogation.
And high level stuff.
I was like chess and checkers. I was like, anybody can kick a door in, no disrespect. Anybody can kick a door, but can you talk to somebody? That's what intrigued me. I was like, wow. So dove into that and just became my world. And, maybe another time, another place, I'll tell you the entire story, but that was my path in law enforcement. So I was crisis negotiator, crisis intervention trainer, as well as officer.
Wow.
When I left the department, I was the commander of the negotiating team, verbal de-escalation. Yeah. So that my wheelhouse is communication, and so that was easy for me. I was like, oh man, reading people. I was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Looking the part. Oh, so I talked to my wife and told her about it, and she was go for it.
Yeah.
Do it. So I said to myself that if I did it, I'm doing everything that this person said. Literally, I'm not, because my hang up has been, I've been gifted certain areas, so I've never really had to work too hard. So I've always been able to kind of sit and look at something. And even though you may say do ABC, I'm sitting back going, yeah, but if I do A, rather than listening to you,
throw like a J in there, and then I can skip B, and I can make up for it on this side. Yeah, man.
Exactly. Hard-headed. But I said I was going to do that, and that's literally what I did. I went through your course. Devoured it on the way there. Every moment you were in my ear. When it came to the gear section, every single piece, like literally every single piece of gear that you said, get, I got. Literally. And then I grabbed some other pieces that I thought were okay, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So followed that. And with the tools that I got from your course, I had the confidence that it was like, I'm already doing this. It's just, I'm just waiting for my opportunity, because I felt that confident with what you gave me through your course. Because I recognized, and I've always wanted to tell you this, in the beginning, I did not like your teaching technique because I'm a teacher.
Yeah. So you were like looking at me like, this guy.
I was sitting back going, man, come on.
Yeah.
But then I listened, and then I realized the type of information in this environment, it has to be presented that way. That's the best way that you can't do your typical, death by PowerPoint, because it's a conversation, it's flowing. And I can tell you, and people that are watching, I called you one day because I had been in conversations, and I told you where I had heard verbatim things that you said in class. Verbatim. And I just laughed to myself. I'm like, and I get it. It's like the old man walking up to you going, come here, man, let me put your phone game. You want to be here for a minute? Listen.
What's going to happen?
And that's literally what your course did. So I was able to go back, and reflect. And there's a saying, I don't remember who said it, but it said he didn't believe in luck, but what he believed is when preparation meets opportunity.
Proper planning,
Right.
yeah.
And that's what I did. Prepared, gobbled up your information, and then your other contacts, not contacts, but your other people that are big in the game that are out there with content.
Yeah.
I invested in them. We went through some of their courses,
Yeah.
from your master's class. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, advanced work. Okay, let me really dig down into that.
Yeah, just give me, and you're just getting stronger and smarter and more
That's it.
tools, more moves, more combos.
That's it.
It's the way, guys. Success leads
That's
to
it.
moves, man.
And literally, this is what happened. I regurgitate what you say. Your network is connected to your network.
100%.
And I'm horrible at that. I'm great at meeting people, but I'm bad. I was bad at networking. So I was like, nope. So I just kept reaching out to people. And a good friend of mine is in the military. We talk all the time, had mentioned that he had a buddy that did some EP work, had a company.
Yeah.
So I hit him up again, and he came over to help me move. And I hit him up again, and he was like, oh, you know what? I just talked to that guy.
Yeah,
Funny you should mention that. He's like, you know what? I'm going to do XYZ ABC with him. Oh, dang. Yeah, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. Well, hey, man, if he ever needs, hey, you know what? Let me get his email and see if it's cool. All right, no worries. I get his email address. He goes, yeah, he said whenever you get a chance, shoot him your stuff.
Yep.
Byron, I sent him my stuff. It was like 8:15 p.m. Right? 8:25. I get a text message that says, I just saw your stuff.
Yep.
Saw your resume, saw your packet. One question: have you ever been on tour before? I'm looking at. I'm like, no, but I know I can handle it. I'm confident that I, understand what it entails. Like,
yeah.
All right, give me a minute. 10 minutes later, I get a phone call. Back and forth, explains the situation. Person needs somebody, and he's like, literally, you would be a godsend because I need somebody to be with the A group in the number one spot because this happened, and I need someone that can come through and clutch. Man, it's a lot of pressure, but can you? And I'm thinking between the class and the fact that I know that I can shoot you a text and be like, bro, I got a question.
Yep.
And I don't have to wait hours, days. It's like, oh, hey, man, sorry to get right back to you, but what's up? I was confident. I mean, how do you put a price on that?
That's what I'm trying to tell these cats, man.
Have you ever taken a course that's executive protection centric on your hard skills? The mission is different. I'm not kicking in doors and, like freaking yelling at people in Iraqi and ripping them out of their houses and doing all the stuff we did, and searching houses and default aggressive. That's not the mission anymore. Have you ever taken an executive protection hard skills course where you learn executive protection for medical, a shooting package, a driving package, an executive protection one, not a military one, not a law enforcement one? And so that's where I wanted to enter because there's a lot of really clean training on the soft skills. We went so crazy in the soft skills direction in our industry. But like, what about the hard skills? Even though it's not what's going to get you paid every day, if you need the hard skills, it's like a parachute. You need a freaking parachute, and your clients are paying you. Our clients pay us and they believe that we freaking have that parachute. And how dare us get these 6-figure jobs and not be able to have those parachutes. So that's what I'm doing, man. I'm raising that gold standard, and I wanted to enter the industry in a way that was like, there's nothing like that out here. We're offering the highest level of driving training available to civilians and professional protectors with the contact driving package. We're taking guys through attack on principle, in these awesome ranges, live fire. How do you cross load? How do you do all these different things? How do you communicate? And I feel like it's kind of the more real deal gritty training. And everyone's like, well, you don't need all that training.
You don't need all of it. It's like, yeah, but your clients think you have it, and I don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
You know, and when your client looks at you and it's like, hey, let's go to Cancun or let's go to Tulum, you know, and it's like, oh, well, I'm like, you know, I've just, a lot of companies even hire locals there because they know they don't know what they're doing. They've just been on tour in the US with their clients. And so it's like, why not educate the American protector on how to operate in these grittier environments?
I think it's also especially important to touch on the civilian side of things
Yeah.
because just like what you said before, a lot of these guys come from a law enforcement or prior military service background.
Yeah.
So them being into a course like this, it kind of changes the dynamic for them. And it kind of like
100%.
changes their mindset.
Yeah.
Right. So they're able to get themselves exposed to different things that's actually going to be, you know, applied to their clients in the real world.
100%.
Right.
It takes all your training and it helps you maximize it in your new battlefield, in your new terrain, as an executive protection professional. And then for the civilian guys, like I get civilian guys that are like, can I get into the industry? And it's like, dude, absolutely you can get into the industry. Some of the most dangerous guys I know are civilians. Some of the guys at the highest levels, like Elijah Shaw, he's a straight civilian, you know, but he's invested in himself to really understand the nuts and bolts of protection. I got a lot of guys that are civilians that were, you know, baristas at Starbucks, and then they're like, you know what, I want more. I want to be a protector. And we take them, we run them through this course, and you come out the other side with more certificates than 80 to 90% of the working protection industry, like current actual certifications that show that you are competent now, not once upon a time, in these skills that we need to be able to bring to bear for our principals, our customers, and our clients. And I get that question a lot. Like, where do you start if you want to become an executive protection agent? How do I get into this industry?
Right. It's like for guys like me, I'm a civilian.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm looking to get into the scene as well.
Yeah,
into the
man.
industry. It's a perfect opportunity to to come out and see what you're made of.
100%. See what you're made of and get built out, you
Yeah.
know? So, like, part of it is proving yourself, first and foremost, proving yourself to yourself. And I think that's really the cool thing about the hybrid course, because the hybrid course, you get training day. Everything I know about executive protection, and you can learn it from the comfort of your own home. And then everything I can't teach you, you can come here and get the actual nuts and bolts, like the physical skills of how to actually be in a motorcade, how to actually speak in a motorcade and move, where your car needs to be to protect that principal vehicle. Like, you get all that. So you get the kind of the best of both worlds. It's an extremely comprehensive education. And the thing that blows me away, it's like, okay, cool. You go through the soft skills, you go through the soft skills with training day, the hard skills with the hard skills intensive. You're a legit protection agent at that point, more currently trained than a lot of guys out there in the industry. And you're freaking ready to go, and your resume is stacked. So that's kind of, I created all these courses with, the employer in mind, because I am an employer. I hire people and I know what to look for, and I know what would serve clients and serve companies best out there in the industry. So, like, that's the whole game, is to empower our industry and empower the individual to have successful careers. And the other side of that is project managers, detail leaders. You know, like, I really want people in our industry to start taking training more seriously, because I run in-docs for people to get on some of my teams, and I see people that are professional protectors that have been protecting clients for years, and they get out to our in-doc and they like can't pass like local law enforcement pistol qual, and I'm like,
I see that a lot.
dude, that's like that's the basics, you know what I mean? Or the CCW qual for whichever one we're throwing at them. We'll throw like 5 or 6 federal and law enforcement and CCW quals at them, and they're struggling. And I'm like, you're not going to Valhalla, bro. Like,
you know what's interesting that you bring that up is I shoot with a bunch of cops, and they're actually not the best shot.
Yeah,
and
man.
It's kind of like, okay, well, you show up to a range, they're all kitted up.
Yeah.
You know they're cops because it says police on their
Super
on their
trooper.
plate.
They're flexing with their cop stuff on you,
You
and
know.
you're like, I'm just a civilian, man.
Yeah, and then I see them draw, and then I see them shoot, and I'm like, that's it.
And your life
know?
depends on this?
Exactly, and you're supposed to be protecting us.
Yeah.
So I think now the civilian market, in terms of like shooting and being a protector, I think that's, it's starting to get a little more popular now, because people are realizing, hey, after 2020, guess what we can't rely on?
Yeah,
Or
100%.
we can't rely on them.
Yeah.
So
no, it is coming down to the individual. Families are realizing this, so the protection industry is blowing up. And the interesting thing is, professionals are actually kind of bad at this, because they have a job, And so, I've got a roster of a few hundred dudes. I'll send an invite. Hey, we're going to go out and train. Like, come out and train with us. Hey, we're going to go out do this. 8 dudes show up. 6 guys show up, and it lets you know all you need to know. And that's why my slogan is protection is more than just a job, it's a lifestyle. It's what you do when you're not at work. But when you have these professional protectors, whether it's law enforcement or private security, they almost think they're good enough and cool enough just because they have the job. And then it's like guys like us that just breathe it. We love this stuff. We're like looking at them like, dude, are you kidding me right now? And I got clients paying you right now, and I've got to leave, for my guys, like, I'll be danged, I've got to leave you at a residence, look my clients in the eyes and tell them this guy's going to be here instead of me tonight. You better be ready, man. So that's kind of the ethos that drives me, with this training and with my company. It's like, we have to be able to protect. Yeah, maybe it'll never happen. Yeah, worst case scenario, but I'd rather have you prepared,
right?
Have it, not need it, than need it, not have it.
Definitely.
So yeah, dude, I Google you, after we talk, and you got pictures up here with Prince Harry, you're hanging out with Jocko. I was like, dude, I got to get this guy on my podcast where he's too famous,
No, not at all.
Nah, man, but you're a humble, down to earth guy too, those are always the realest guys, man. The guys that aren't hiding behind what they've done, that are just like, will look you in the eyes, shake your hand, and be at your service if you need them, so I appreciate that about you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I thank you for the comment. It's one of the, one of the ethoses of our UK Special Forces. One of them is humility. It is because you just never know who you're chatting to, who they are and what they know, and the circles that they are in, what I mean? So like I said, I rub shoulders with royalty, but, I think one of the things my wife says to me is, one of my USPs is I can talk to anyone, whether you're a young lad on the streets in Mogadishu or whether you are a member of the royal family. I don't treat you any differently. You get treated exactly the same from me. So yeah, and I think that's important as well for a lot of people.
100%. It's ridiculously important, man. And with the kind of different types of humans that we get to spend time with, one day, you are speaking with royalty. The next day you are speaking to some guy you're meeting off the street in some other country who, could be the local sheik's son, or someone that could literally decide if you live or die while you're out there, walking around on patrol or whatever you're getting into. Yeah. Or if you're an EP, it could be that person that can get a door open for you and give you that access that you need.
Yeah. And as you touched on there, to be successful in EP and security and to continue in that, it's not about what someone made a good comment to me. It's not about what people say in front of you, it's what they're saying when you're not there. And that's it. That's important as well, is, first impressions last. Everything you do is a reflection on you. And as you touched on EP, when you're representing some of these high profile clients, you're almost a reflection on them as well. So the way that you act will reflect, on them and the way they're being perceived as well. So yeah, it's something that some people struggle with, but for me, it seems quite natural.
100%. No. And so yeah, you got the social dynamics. You're a genuine guy, and this, of course, is the part for you that's painful. But I got to talk about like who you are and how cool you are for a minute, so the listeners know. You've broken 2 world records. You were British Special Forces, SBS. You're doing some consulting in the private security realm. You might be running around on TV. You got a book that you're dropping. You've been the type of warrior who's made some awesome contributions at some pretty high levels, and a lot of that momentum and steam, you're supporting a nonprofit with some of the proceeds from your book and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
real quick.
Yeah, so the proceeds from the book will be going to the Honor Foundation, which is US based, and they basically help the transition for special forces operators going into the civilian sector. And I can sort of relate to that myself, and as you, when you left the Marine Corps, I unfortunately left because I had a parachute accident. I didn't want to leave. I was what would know as a lifer. I did 16 years up until that point. I joined at the age of 17. And so after the parachuting injury, I found myself, quickly going into the civilian sector, which was obviously the private security sector. Yeah. But for me, it was a real identity crisis. I knew when I was in the military, I was working alongside like-minded individuals that had the same drive, the same passion, and the sort of same goals and knowing what I was doing for the next 2 years, it was all planned out to, where do I now fit in society? What is my role? Where do my skill sets, and how can I contribute to society still? But also to add to the pressure as well. My wife was 8 months pregnant as well. So I was worried if there was any work out there and things like that. So that identity crisis, that transition from the military to civilian is quite alien. I never feel like you fully transition. I think we're always still transitioning. Once you're in the military, you're always in the military. And so the Honor Foundation sort of really resonated with me on that, and has been able to sort of help those. Because what you do when you're in the military and you see people being successful in the outside world, and they say, well, I can't do that because I don't have a degree or I don't have that. Actually, you underestimate what skill sets you already have from your time in the military. And it's just really sort of giving them that confidence, letting them know that they are already probably steps ahead of some of their peers, and actually isn't as alien as you think it is. And then hopefully their transition will be smoother. So $5 for every book that we sell will go towards the Honor Foundation.
That is super dope, to use a scientific term, man. I love that. And you touched on it. I mean, you said it beautifully. I think, it's all about finding that new fight, man. It's all about recognizing what we have in these engines that we've built that we can translate over into a new battlefield, man. And guys that don't do that, that engine can eat them alive, and that is the new war, and I think it's even a little bit more sophisticated, because nothing will bring you closer to destruction than comfort, man. That thing inside you can eat you alive if you don't put it to good use. That's awesome, dude. That's something I'm pretty passionate about. Wrote a book about it too.
Because I think for me it was like, what is it we can do out there? I talk about some of the skill sets, and we'll go into the security, without sounding like Liam Neeson. People with our particular skill sets would naturally go into the security industry, but that isn't for everyone who leaves the military. It's just it's everything. And I ran security for an event for the UK trade investment to go for the oil and gas companies to go present to the Libyan oil and gas. So these guys, 4 companies, they're on 6-7 figure salaries, these guys, and they're representing their brands, and every presentation failed. They didn't have their slides in the correct order. They weren't confident speaking in front of a crowd. And it's like, wow, they're the things we take for granted from the military, because we have to give a set of orders. We have to present in large numbers. And so it's just, yes, you may have a degree, but if you can't interpret that or translate that, then it's no use. So there are, and that's what I sort of emphasize to those guys and girls that are leaving, that you do have a particular set of skills away from the military and the military sort of tactics that will be really contributing. We're thrown in scenarios where things don't go to plan. The plan doesn't survive. It doesn't survive first.
Like what we do.
Whereas a lot of the corporate world, they're like, if it doesn't go to plan, they just don't know what to do. And so they're the sort of things that I think that the veterans can really contribute to some of these businesses, being reactive to situation changes, working under pressure, having targets and objectives, because everything we do in the military is a mission or an objective, everything that we do. And we will always make sure that we're successful on that mission objective, regardless of the path that we're taking.
What happens? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I love it. Boom. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Staccato. My first pistol sponsor. I've been sponsored by a lot of companies, right, over the years. But when it comes to pistol, that's my bread and butter. Pistol is something I believe in. I'm a competitive shooter. We're shooting anywhere from, 800 rounds a month type of thing, right? So Staccato, being what I believe, is one of, if not the most complete handguns you can put in your hand. It's got every component that a handgun could have, should have. They're actually extremely dependable now that they've made some changes, and these things are straight up tack drivers. If you're looking for a pistol that will do as much of the work for you as a piece of hardware can, obviously you have to have the marksmanship and all the different things, but different guns perform at different levels. And I want to say that Staccato is one of
by far, for sure, take it from a competitive shooter, we're shooting the highest volumes of rounds constantly right now. Not used to have a background guy, but like right now, when you go shoot, you're gonna see certain brands. Staccato is one of, if not the highest performing firearm that is both CCW, duty ready, and also competitive ready. So I want to give them a shout out. If you guys are looking for a good handgun to build your skills on top of, go check out Staccato. Much love and respect. Boom. When it comes to the technology you use to protect your home, there's nothing better than Deep Sentinel. AI-driven, human-monitored technology that will keep you and your family safe for the same price you're paying for whatever Ring doorbell system you have. Check out Deep Sentinel. It's such an honor to join forces with these guys. They should be in every single house in the world. Get real-time Overwatch for you and your loved one. And for 10% off, depending on when you're watching this, don't forget to use code Byron at checkout. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can, because it makes all of these things possible. Thanks for those contributions.